This is the best external display I have ever used with a Mac, and you probably can't get one. Hey, I'm Jerry, and this EVE Spectrum is a 27-inch display that packs almost everything you would want into a display that runs under $1,000. It is the first display that I have used that either meets or exceeds what I get from an iMac 5K, and I like it a lot. This is a full 4K IPS display running at 3840 by 2160. It has HDR with a peak brightness of 750 nits, 98% P3 wide color calibrated right out of the box. It's G-Sync and FreeSync compatible, has 1 millisecond response rate and 144 Hz refresh rate. There are two HDMI 2.1 inputs, a DisplayPort 1.4, USB-A and C for peripherals audio out, and a 10 gigabit per second USB-C connection with 100 watts of power delivery for a single one cable connection to a MacBook. Now, this does not come cheap, but it's also not a $5,000 Pro Display XDR. This display goes for $800 on EVE's website, and that does not include the stand, which runs another $100. But the stand is also actually really nice. It actually allows for a good range of motion for going up and down. It has tilt back and forth, and you can even rotate this whole thing 90 degrees if that's what you need. But let me just say that this display looks amazing. Just incredible, both in picture quality and physical design. The frame on this EVE Spectrum is just plain black without any branding or crazy LEDs. The bezels are thin and modern, and the whole casing is pretty thin from the side. Without a stand, it looks like a Pro Display XDR from the front. The stand on here is just simple and sturdy. It's just a super clean overall design that fits what I'm looking for in a desktop monitor. And I will point out that there are other monitors with similar specs on the market, or even ones made specifically for the Mac. But those other 4Ks just look ugly, or have really ugly stands. They don't get as bright as the EVE does, don't offer the same color accuracy, etc. As far as the LG Ultrafine displays, they were built in partnership with Apple back in 2016. They look dated. There's not an ounce of cable management, and they just don't fully match the picture quality of an iMac. There are a lot of things to love about this display, starting with the 144 Hz refresh rate. Yeah, I can get a full 144 Hz refresh rate from my MacBook Pro, and even my MacBook Air M1. Similar to the high refresh rate of the MacBook Pros, what that means in reality is you get a super clean display that stays sharp even when moving things around the display. So web browsers, Finder windows, games, whatever, it all looks super nice. And just like how Retina displays have ruined Full HD or Quad HD displays for me, the ProMotion on the Liquid Retina XDR on the MacBook Pro, the iPad Pro, and the iPhone 13 Pro have now ruined 60 Hz for me. Everything just looks so smooth on a high refresh rate display, and now being able to have it on my desk setup completes my transition. I don't want to look at any low res or low refresh rate displays anymore, ever. Now, one quick note on this display. I did have to use a Windows computer to update the firmware to version 105 before I could get the 144 Hz from the Mac. I'll leave a link in the description below to that firmware, but depending on when the display was manufactured, if you can get one, you may need to update the firmware before it fully works. Next, there's the 98% DPI P3 color that's calibrated right out of the box. This makes color grading videos and photos so nice because I know what I'm looking at is really what it should look like. No more constantly dragging windows from an external display to the MacBook's display to make sure that it's actually looking like what I intend. And I've tried a lot of displays over the last few years, but this is the one that most resembles the colors and brightness of a Mac display right out of the box. BenQ came close with a specific color profile called MBook mode, but it just wasn't quite there. Just look at this side-by-side shot with the MacBook Pro. They look fantastic together, and all I had to do was a minor adjustment to the white balance on the display itself. Even the LG Ultrafine 5K doesn't come close to the look of the MacBook compared to the EVE. As far as brightness goes, this guy gets up to 450 nits for standard content, which is slightly lower than the regular standard content 500 nits for the MacBook Pro, the iMac, or even the LG Ultrafine display. But have you ever worked at 500 nits for a long time? It hurts your eyeballs. But the ability to get close to it if needed for a period of time is nice when most displays at this price point top out around 350 nits. Then there's HDR, which can get up to 750 nits, which looks surprisingly good on here. And it has 16 local dimming zones when in HDR. But there's actually a small issue with that. And as you can see, the 16 zones is not really enough for a display like this because you can clearly see the backlights turn on and off as an object moves around the display. So it might work okay for content creation if you're creating HDR videos, for example. But in my regular use of this display, I don't use HDR, but it's nice to have it if I do want to watch an HDR video on the display. Next, there's the resolution. And this is the one place where the iMac 5K display edges above the Eve. This is a 4K panel, which obviously is not the same as a 5K, so it's not quite as sharp as 5K. The Eve comes in at 166 pixels per inch versus the iMac 5K at 226. When running a 5K display and a 4K display at the same scaled resolution of 2560 by 1440, you can see that the 5K display is slightly sharper when zoomed in. In regular use of both of them side by side, it's difficult to actually see the difference, but if I had to choose between 4K 144 Hz or 5K 60 Hz, I'm pretty sure I would choose the 4K. It's pretty sharp, and ideally I would like a 5K high refresh rate, but we'll have to see what Apple does in the future. So, in my opinion, this is the best external display I've used on a Mac yet, and I totally think that it's worth the $800 price tag when you consider everything we just talked about. Like a clean modern design, check. Color accuracy, check. Brightness, check. Single cable for the display and charging, check. But I did say that you probably can't get one. So let me tell you about my issues trying to get this monitor. Apparently there's a long history with this company Eve, and I won't pretend to be an expert on it, and in short, the story is that the display was originally a crowd-funded display promising all of the best specs for a much cheaper price than the competitors. They actually even made a crowd-funded clone of the Microsoft Surface before this. But the problem here is that even though you can order this on their website, you may not actually receive it. There are some YouTubers out there who were sent an Eve display for review, and they all mentioned this information about the Eve display availability, but I went ahead and ordered one in October anyway, thinking it must all be overblown or it's fixed by then. When I ordered, I paid the $100 deposit. Not too many days after, I got an email saying that the order was just about ready to ship and I needed to pay the remaining balance. I promptly did so. I emailed them in November and they said due to a system error, the order would be delayed until January. I asked to just cancel the order and I heard nothing. In January, I emailed them again asking for an update, and they said it would be shipping in late January. And so I just asked again to cancel the order, which they finally did. Now it is possible that my order would have shipped in January, or most likely not. But being an enterprising fellow, I of course checked out eBay. Over a few weeks, different listings would come and go, and I finally was able to snag one for just $700, including the stand. So if $800 is a good price, and I think it is, plus $100 for the stand, then $700 all in was a freaking bargain. So check the link below to see if there's any available right now. Overall, this is an amazing display, and the single best external display I've used with a Mac personally. There may be other high-end displays like the Pro Display XDR or the Asus ProArt, but those are many thousands of dollars and not high refresh rate. I'm super happy with this purchase and I do recommend this display if you can get one. But what do you think? Are you waiting to see what Apple does at their next event before pulling the trigger on something like this? Let me know below. Be sure to hit subscribe and of course those notifications to see all the videos coming out next month, which might include new Macs, new displays, iPads, or whatever else Apple has in store for us. Hit the thumbs up button if you liked it, hit subscribe if you want, and I will see you next time.